It's time to rant about Shin Sekai Yori. Nah, I'm just playing. It goes without any surprise, of course, that I love Shin Sekai Yori. It's one of the, I can add it to the list of my favorite anime. To me, is one of the best anime I've seen, and it's consistent with its characterization, with its world building, with its plot. I guess I could say personally, I thought it could have moved a bit quicker at some parts. I thought it was paced kind of a bit too relaxed, and I would love for it to move more at a Code Geass pace. But it did well. It did well for what it was and the type of genre that it was, and I greatly appreciate that. But that's not the reason why you're here, is it? You're not here in order to hear me just say this anime is great and you should staple it on your doors and you should shout from the rooftops how excellent it is and love it for everything about it. You're not here for that, nor are you here to just hear this anime sucks and you should punch it, hit it, spit on it, stomp on it, and just throw it out the window with a brick behind it. You're here for this rant because you not only want to know that whether I liked it or dislike it, you also want to know why I liked it or dislike it. But before I get into why, well, honestly, I really didn't dislike the anime. If I was to think about the only things I wish that could have been better about it, were maybe the bittersweet ending could have been resolved differently. As you saw in the anime, since you're looking at the rant, I assume you might have already seen it already. At the ending, you can kind of tell that Sekai, the protagonist, that she's kind of accepted the system that they have in place in order to oppress. The system oppresses the children, but it is by weeding them out at an early age. And by weeding, of course, I mean killing them. But at the same time, though, the system presents like ogres and karmic demons from existing. And by them existing, they're basically people where their psychic powers have gone out of control, and they become like murderers, whether actively or rather indirectly. So that's something that you see at the end of the anime, is that she ends up accepting this role, as instead of her raising the mole rat creatures like she was doing, eventually she starts raising the impure cats, and that kind of shows that she's now accepted the role that that former head of society wanted her to carry the torch for, and now she's doing that. And I wish that maybe she could have rebelled against the system a little bit more. Maybe she could have continued to fight against things. I would have wanted things to be a bit less bittersweet than that. But then again, can you really blame her given everything she's been through, everything she saw? Even though she didn't experience the terror of an ogre, really, it was close enough because that girl wasn't really an ogre, but still. And then I wish the pacing was a little bit better. I mean, people that like Attack on Titan, and people that like stuff like DBZ, and maybe Kill la Kill, more fast, and Gurren Lagann, more fast-paced action anime, aren't really going to appreciate this one. But I still wish the thing was paced a little bit quicker, even though the pacing did work for the anime and the type of genre that it was. So those would be about the only things I can say I kind of disliked about Shin Sekai Yori. But other than that, the rest of the package of this anime from the New World was great. Okay, first of all, branching off of what I did, the small stuff I disliked the anime, getting in and branching off the stuff I liked about the anime, first we're going to talk about why you probably never heard of Shin Sekai Yori, aka From the New World. As you'll probably see, and as I saw looking at reviews on myanimelist.net, looking at random forums, the opinion of this anime is pretty much the same, where everyone pretty much loved this anime. They think it should pretty much be classified up there as a classic, with basic, when you consider everything about it, with Cowboy Bebop, with Samurai Champloo, with Attack on Titan, with DBZ, basically the all-time classics of an anime genre, Magical Girl Modica. People believe this anime should be up there. They give it 10s, 9s. a great anime, but you've probably never heard about this anime. And based off my research and what I gather, I'm about to give you my opinion as to why you probably haven't heard of this diamond that's not in a rough, but a diamond that's that, as I'm about to explain, that's probably hidden inside at the bottom of the barrel of all these other gems and everything on top of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've got a feeling you've heard of these titles before, haven't you?
I don't know. How's Kogami's treatment pin?
Oh, hold on. I don't know where you were aiming, but you managed to land a direct hit right on his spinal cord.
Any objections? Good! We leave tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Meeting adjourned, people!
Say hi, then no story 抱いてあってもなく3倍追い続けた滲んだ New World It's only just begun 今始まりの This is where tomorrow brings a new day It's time to learn the pain It's game ready for it
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. All these anime that many people also consider to be great, almost classics, are premiered in the same season and same year as Shin Sekai Yori. And that would, of course, include Psychopaths, Love Chibiu, and Other Delusions, but Tuned. And of course, this anime didn't premiere the same year as, well, it didn't premiere the same season as Shin Sekai Yori, but Sword Art Online was reaching its climax when Shin Sekai Yori began. So, yeah, so when you consider all the other competitions Shin Sekai Yori had coming out, and considering how that anime kind of hides its true intentions from you until you get into it, when Psychopaths, you know it's going to be about this utopian / dystopian future with these guns that determine your psychopaths, and then you got Love Chibiu and Other Delusions with that girl who is crazy and in her delusions who has Chibiu syndrome still inside middle school. Then you got Platoon with the bombs and everything in the game that's been brought to real life. And then there's Sword Art Online. Love it, hate it, you still got an opinion about it. And because of that, that's the reason why, one of the reasons why From the New World has kind of been left at the bottom of the barrel, despite how great it is. Reason number two I would attribute it to poor advertising, kind of. Where, to give us an example of this, let's take a look at a picture of Shin Sekai Yori. Let's look at one of the posters about it that gravitates across the internet. Let's bring that down real quick. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, this is kind of interesting, I guess. I mean, we got the colors really don't stand out too much. We're looking at a pretty dull color palette, kind of meh. I guess we got a bit of a serious anime going on here. And then we also got these girls, these students. They look pretty happy. They look like they're pretty okay about things. I guess we're looking at kind of a slice of life here, maybe taking place in the future. Maybe they're gonna have some drama. The description talk about psychic powers. Maybe there's gonna be some drama going on and everything, you know. And then we got this little creature going on here, so we got some demi-humans and stuff happening. Yeah, okay, yeah, this looks decent, I guess. The description seems like there could be more, but I'm not too excited looking at this, I have to say. How's my impression of the average anime fan? Pretty spot on, right? Alright. But in any case, so yeah, looking at the poster of Shin Sekai Yori, and if you compare to other posters, I'm not gonna go through and bring them all down, but posters of Psychopaths, you got the whole futuristic cyberpunk thing going on with them like walking through the street and everything, and then in some posts you got the Eliminator guns and whatnot, and then Love Chibiu and Other Delusions. I mean, you have such a bright color palette that just screams excitement jumping at you with that show, which matches the excitement and over the topness that can come with that anime. And then of course Batum, you can kind of see, you got the chick in the front with the poster I can remember from memory. You got a chick in the front with a big knocker. So that's going to get people looking at stuff, right? Then you got a guy at the beginning, like with the thing with the gem on his arm, throwing a bomb and explosion in the background, very dynamic. And then, what else we got? Then, of course, Sword Art Online, we know with anything fantasy that screams fantasy and that doesn't look dull is kind of going to attract anime fans. So with Sword Art Online, with its cover, and when you already basically know just knowing what the anime is about is going to get a lot of people going towards it. Especially since back then a lot of people were looking for something more exciting than Dot Hack Sign. I personally like Dot Hack Sign personally, but the average anime fan will be bored tears with Dot Hack Sign, I'm telling you. So something like that, but that's promising that, but with more action, and the people were freaking gravitating towards that, and the poster pretty much displayed that. So yeah, the poster for Shin Sekai Yori that I was using to advertise, there's another poster too that, if you can believe it or not, shows even less about what's going on in the anime. And it just didn't show enough in order to really get fans into, in order to draw fans in visual-wise into what this anime is about, where you have psychic powers and you have kids being murdered by these imperial cat monsters, and you have the adults that are getting these monsters on them. Then you have all these fantastical creatures like I can't remember that thing in the forest that was actually it was a slug creature, but it was actually a living library with terabytes upon terabytes of information inside of it, and the grueling history and everything that happened with humanity and the psychic powers, and how the world, basically World War III happened and destroyed the whole world to be at the point where it is today, and these monster rat creatures. And I mean, all of this going on in this anime, and these kids trying to survive, and it's just you won't get that from the poster, even anything close to it, by looking at the poster for Shin Sekai Yori. So it gets to a point, like when you do a movie trailer, I would say the less you show in the trailer, usually the better. You have to show enough to get people drawn in, but then again, you have to also, you have to show enough to get them drawn in, and to show enough to alleviate their fears on the weaknesses of whatever that movie's going to represent. But at the same time, though, you have to not give away too much of the plot of the movie, because then it shows that you're compensating for something. And with Shin Sekai Yori, it seemed like they were so confident in what they were creating, which they rightfully were confident in what they were creating, but they're a bit too confident where they left too much for people to imagine just by them taking a glance at the poster. So they seem to forgot that most people nowadays are visual, that they're going to judge something just by looking at the poster or just by looking at the first description of it. They're not going to delve deeper into it. And they really lost a lot of fans when fans are looking at anime that are coming out in fall 2012. They're like, do I look at this bland looking poster with this dull color power, with these schoolgirls that are just looking at me, looks like a regular slice of life? Or do I want to see this super exciting looking slice of life with this girl in a super bright color palette that has the eye patch that is making this crazy quirky pose? Reason number 3, and the final reason why Shin Sekai Yori is that diamond hitting at the bottom of the barrel, among other diamonds, is that I would say that this anime suffers from the school days effect. I promise, eventually I will get around to making a school days review and rant, but I'm going to let you know right now, of course, that School Days is also one of my favorite all-time anime, and I really love it. I think it's a great deconstruction of the harem genre, but I'm not going to get into that really right now. But the School Days effect is something I dubbed for an anime where you watch it, and even if the anime is good, what you end up seeing in the anime clashes so much with your expectations of what you expect to find that it gives you whiplash and makes you not enjoy the anime, or it ends up ruining your experience of the anime for most people. Now you're wondering, what caused the whiplash or the School Days effect inside of Shin Sekai Yori? And the thing that caused it is not the violence, because of course right at the beginning of the anime they already show you that even though we're showing this right now, even we're showing this, and then we're going right into these little cutesy kids. But right at the beginning of the anime, they show violence, or they show people being murdered horribly by individuals with psychic powers, and you could consider present day times, and the times with airplanes and jets and cars and big cities and everything. So you already know that this is going to be a violent anime, or at least be behind a lot of the casualness that they're showing with the kids and this rural community and everything, that there is violence underneath the subtext of this anime. You already know that, so that can't be it. They're letting you know that from the get-go. From the research I've gathered online, from people I've talked to, and by looking at people's opinions and listening to people's opinions on Shin Sekai Yori, the biggest thing I see that causes whiplash concerning this anime, and that caused most people to drop Shin Sekai Yori, even despite how much they like it to begin with, is a huge homosexuality twist that they have inside the show. I'm not bashing anyone's belief or anyone's preferences and partners or anything like that, but that's just something I saw while looking at people's opinions about Shin Sekai Yori. As you know, similar to the School Days ending, which if you haven't seen it, you're not going to see that coming, and I'm not going to spoil you about it here, but that's the thing that caused the infamous or famous whiplash inside the School Days anime. And Shin Sekai Yori from the New World, the characters at the beginning, some of them, they're young, and some of them are kind of like flirty with each other, and there's also a genetic reason why they tend to be more flirty than you would expect inside of a typical Japanese cartoon, even though we know, like, nowadays, of course, I mean, kids be flirty anyway. But in this series, they give a genetic reason why, and it's of course because they tried to alleviate people's violent tendencies by making them more like the bonobo monkey, and by that, whenever conflict arises, they make it so that the monkeys like get rid of that tension by giving each other sexual attention. And that's something that even the younger kids inside this anime kind of get into each other and everything because of that. And at the beginning, you have Sekai and some of the other male characters. When things are stressful, they're like kind of getting fresh with each other. And at the beginning, it's more of a heterosexual like attraction between the male and female characters. That's what it is. But then when the time skip happens, the show completely does a 180. And this is where the whiplash happens. After we have the first time skip, the characters go completely 180, where they're going from heterosexual relationships to full-blown homosexual relationships. And I don't remember what the name of that anime was. I think it was Sakura X Sakura, or it might have been Sakura Kiss, where you had some girls and they were just starting a lesbian relationship with each other with just holding hands and a little bit of kissing. No, these characters at this time skip, they're doing what you'd expect heterosexual couples to do. They are going full tongue. They are kissing. They're like wrestling in the fields and everything. They're feeling each other up. It's not hentai, it's not even softcore, but if you're still an anime fan, if your preference isn't to see like homosexual like stuff in anime, and you are watching this anime and you don't expect this to happen based off the posters, and if you don't expect it to happen based off of like even what you get in the description, then this is going to give you whiplash concerning what's going on in the anime. And as I said, especially if it's not something that you want to see, and all of a sudden you're just not giving little tidbits of it happen, you're just thrown full blown into it, then that's going to probably hurt your enjoyment of the show. So yeah, so if you're wondering, my fellow Shin Sekai Yori from the New World enthusiasts, if you're wondering why your great anime hasn't like been spread to the four corners of the globe, and why people aren't talking about it in the same conversations as Cowboy Bebop, as Full Metal Alchemist, as Code Geass, as Gurren Lagann, then those are the three reasons why. It's because it came out at the same time as other great anime that people consider that came out in fall 2012 that people still consider great to this day. It's also because the poster didn't show enough in order to get people into it when you consider what came beside, what other posters and what other advertisers came beside other anime released during a time period. And also there's that school days effect where you'll have a lot of people where and we all notice that when a show does something like bad, despite how good it is, the haters are going to form larger groups than the lovers. Or you see people online saying, well, no, this anime sucks because this anime is just gay. And then Shin Sekai Yori has, of course, those people are homophobic, and also Shin Sekai Yori has so much more to offer than just stuff dealing with his relationships with the characters. When you consider the story, when you consider the world building, when you consider the themes going on inside the show, and you consider how artsy the show is or how it represents the dream sequences of the characters and stuff dealing with the psychic powers, the monsters and everything, how the history can tie into even our world today, there's more to it than that. So those are the 3 reasons why Shin Sekai Yori is that diamond. Unfortunately, guys, it's at the bottom of the barrel. Hopefully, by me making this review, more people will learn about it and more people will come to appreciate this anime for what it is, because in my opinion, it's truly a masterpiece. Why do I like Shin Sekai Yori so much? Is it the characters? Is it the world building? Is it how everything comes together cohesively? No. No, it's none of that. It's none of that at all. My friends, I've dived into the trenches of the internet and I've seen what horror anime has to offer. I've seen When the Cicadas Cry. I've seen When the Seagulls Cry. I've seen what the god-awful werewolf spinoffs the creators of When the Cicadas Cry created. Corpse Party, Another, Shiki, Hellsing. I've seen a lot of horror anime, and I could continue listening. I've seen a lot, but it is very, very rare where I see something in the cartoon medium that causes me to actually fear genuine dread while watching it. And this series is one of the rarities indeed. It was like the creators of From New World had a handbook written by Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, Alfred Hitchcock, and Wes Craven considering how you are to conduct horror in TV, cartoon, or in a movie. It's like they read that manual and they blessed this series with genuine dread. There are numerous moments in this anime where you're at the edge of your seat and your heart is beating with that beautiful dread as to what's going to happen next in anticipation of your character's fate. But one of the most particular moments that stood out to me was episode 19. I believe the creators of this anime, writers, producers, or the writer of that episode or whatever, I believe that they deserve an award for episode 19 of this anime. Out of all the moments present in From the New World, that episode did everything right concerning horror, and it was complete, utter masterpiece. It deserves to win 10 horror awards for what that single episode did. And if you're a fan and you don't know what I'm talking about, if you see the anime, please go back and rewatch that episode and hopefully you'll see where I'm coming from here. But enough about that. I'm going to get into why Shin Sekai Yori does horror so well when you consider what I've dubbed some of the, now I don't know, some of these rules probably already exist, some of them don't, but what I consider the rules of horror. For rule 1, the monster must be unrelatable. Now again, as I said, a lot of these rules aren't originally mine. I'm just putting them here to show how they relate to Shin Sekai Yori. But in any case, the first rule, of course, is that the monster must be unrelatable. And what we mean by that is that the monster, you must not be able to associate yourself with the monster. He must either be so feral that he's animalistic and so that you can't like be able to tame or relate to him, or he must be a creature whose values or morals are so beyond you that you can't comprehend it, where basically he's going at his own tempo. The monster, him or her, is going at their own tempo, kind of like a spin-up, but a murderous spin-up. From the New World adheres to Rule 1 to starters when it comes to the monster rats, where at the beginning, when they first meet the monster rats speak a little bit of their language, of the protagonist's language, not like a lot, but they speak a little so that you can kind of associate with them, but there's still some disassociation there. And then later, when you have an invading species of wild monster rats that are coming to attack our protagonists after their powers are sealed and they have to depend on the monk with psychic powers to defend them, those monster rats don't speak any of their language at all. Whether it's English in the English dub or Japanese dub, they're not speaking any of their language. They're just gurgling and just going rah, 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 and stuff like that. And that, of course, is going to cause a big disassociation right there, where when you see them, it's just going to be fight or flight because you can't talk with them, so you can't like relate to them at all. And a good thing, it's a bad thing, but also a good thing when you consider what it shows about our culture, us as human beings, how the later Resident Evil games, the villains in there they don't speak English, they speak other languages for the English players of the game. And that also makes it so you can associate with them too. It makes them appear more monstrous because you can't relate to them. So that goes along with the rule that the monster can't be relatable. Rule number 2, do not show the monster. Well, it's not really don't show the monster. It's really delay showing the monster, or at least completely the monster as much as possible. And this is one of the best things that was really mastered in a literary form by H.P. Lovecraft, where H.P. Lovecraft would only give you small descriptions of how people viewed the monster, but he never quite until the end of the story gave you a full description of the monster. And then oftentimes there was something even bigger pulling the monster's string, something even more terrifying and something even less comprehensible, and you never really got any inkling of what that thing was that was so terrifying that it terrified the monster, made the monster do what it wanted to do. And that goes with not showing the monster. It's like the less you show of it, the more you give people breadcrumbs, but the less you show, the more the monster seems more terrifying to the audience, because they don't get that full view of what they're dealing with. The monster is just as mysterious, it's just as frightening as looking into the shadows when you don't completely show it. Live action movies like the original Predator and Aliens did this well with their monsters, where the Predator was camouflaged most of the time, and then in Aliens they only showed bits and pieces of the creature, and of course they showed the smaller versions, but they didn't really show completely the full creature until nearly the end of the movie. Shin Sekai Yori does this with the monster cats, and of course with the ogre girl, where the monster cats, you never completely see the monster cats until later, when the monster cats after the first time skip are really a threat, and our protagonists are really trying to figure out a way to save each other from these monster cats coming and killing them. They never completely show the monster cats. They only show a head, or they show them creeping behind a corner, and they only show them stalking them. They only show the monster cats later after the mystique of them is gone, and when the monster attacks are in full-blown like kill mode is when they show them. And with the ogre girl, when she's going around on the beautiful episode 19 and slaughtering people, they never never show her, and even when they show her later after that, they even takes them a little while to show her face. Her face is covered up, and she's just walking, going around killing people, and then she's wearing the shoes cloak, so you can't completely see her yet anyway. It's like they kept the monster's appearance in the shadows as much as possible to make it seem just as terrifying as the darkness, to make it seem just as terrifying as the unknown, when us humans are dealing with something that we don't completely comprehend or understand. It not only has to be a mental thing, also has to be a visual thing too, because the mental is going to correspond, the visual is going to correspond, of course, with the mental. If you can't see it, then that also adds to it, also goes back to being unrelatable, and if you can't really see it, you can't completely comprehend it. And with the ogre creature, with the monster cat, they stalked you, then they eventually killed you. With the ogre creature, the moment you saw the ogre, because she had these psychic powers, you were just dead. There was nothing these people can do. You were just gone. So that adds to the thing about how not showing the monster. And real quick, even the old Godzilla movies, despite how campy the monster kind of looked with the man in the suit and everything, they did show the reason why, and a lot of people complain about this with the newest Godzilla movie, why didn't they show Godzilla kicking butt sooner? Because it takes away from the mystique of the monster, people. They never show Godzilla like right then and there. They always show bits and pieces of him, and they finally full-blown show him when it's really time for him to start kicking butt, and or when he's a bad guy, for the humans to really start trying to do some damage against him. So yeah, that goes with don't show the monster. Rule number 3, sacrifice the sheep. You can have all the pop-up scares you want. You can have the monster being something come from an eldritch horror from an H.P. Lovecraft novel, something you completely, utterly cannot comprehend. You can barely have it show till the end. It's not gonna matter if your whole cast is completely invincible, and if people can already predict and know that no one in your story is gonna die or get taken by the monster. If let's say the cast of your story is as invincible by happenstance as the monster hunting them, then there's going to be no tension in the story and no one's going to care about what happens. This right here is not that big of a problem in any horror genre. Most horror nowadays really have no problem like killing anybody, but you have to let somebody bite the dust or let people know that the monster or the circumstances surrounding whatever is going on has to be taken seriously. And of course, Shin Sekai Yori does that early and also people, it has to be somebody that we kind of care about though. Now I gotta say, that's a mistake that a lot of shows make, is they sacrifice a character, but when the character is lost, there's no big emotional feeling behind the character dying because we don't know anything about the character. The character is just like fodder. They're just a regular sheep, but they're a faceless sheep. And that's something that a lot of shows do need to work on, especially in horror, is in movies and anime too, is that when you kill a character, you have to make sure it's a character that's noteworthy. You gotta try and hide the death flags as much as possible. I know that's hard to do. Gotta try and hide those to make it a surprise. But at the same time though, you have to, somebody of importance to the cast has to go to let people know things will be taken seriously. And Shin Sekai Yori gave you a little bit of an indication with that girl at the beginning. She was the one of the members of the group. We don't know much about her. We know she's kind of clumsy and everything, but she's kind of a cute character. She's got the glasses and everything. She seems like a very nice young girl. And it does suck when all of a sudden she vanishes and all the memories of her just completely gone. That just sucked. But Shin Sekai Yori really plays on his theme and really hammers you with it when, what's his name? Shun! There you go, Shun! How can I forget about Shun? When Shun ends up becoming a karmic demon, that really affects the entire group because the memories of him last longer with the group and have a longer impression with the group, and it also has a longer impression with us watching the show too, because we get to know more about Shun. We get to see his struggle with his powers of going out of control, and his kind of love triangle thing with Satoru and Sekai. We get to see that, and which is interesting. He has a love triangle here with a guy and a girl here, and so yeah, when we get to see Shun in his distress and him turn to a karmic demon, then eventually his memories are erased from, the memories of him are erased from everybody's mind. That really was a big fat sheep that was sacked for the sake of the plot, and that really shows the effect of sacking a sheep, where you have to be able to show your audience that the terror in this story, the terror in the horror, the terror in the world it should be taken seriously. And that showed when that girl at the beginning was vanished, and it also showed when Shun also unfortunately had to make his exit in the show because of his transformation to a karmic demon. Rule 4, remembering the 3 levels of terror. This one was made famous by Stephen King. I'm ripping this directly from the man, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this too, where he said basically there are 3 levels of terror of fear in a story, where you have basically the gross out terror, where someone's walking. Let's imagine there's someone with all 3 levels. Let's imagine there's someone walking inside of a dark room, and with the lowest level of terror, which is gross out terror, is the person walking to a dark room. All of a sudden, some slimy, thick substance falls on their shoulder, and they look at it and they're frightened. That's level 1 in the bottom of the tier concerning terror, and that's gross out terror. Level 2 is jump scare terror. Level 2 is a person walks into a dark room and they hear something behind them, and they look, and all of a sudden something just pops out at them. That's level 2 in the second tier of terror. And then we have level 3, which is the highest tier, of terror, as described by Stephen King. And that highest tier is when you walk into a dark room and you hear a noise behind you, and you look behind you, and there's nothing there. Those are the 3 tiers of terror in any given story, any movie, or any anime, cartoon, whatever, any medium. Now in anime, we're going to stick with anime here mostly. We're not going to talk about what's going on with the horror movie industry, anything like that. I'll save that topic for another time. But given the anime with the cartoon horror medium, we see that gross out terror is the biggest one present, because gross out terror honestly is the easiest one to do, where there'll be something like disgusting on screen, where they'll like meticulously draw guts or gore and everything, or there'll be lots of blood going everywhere, and it makes you want to go ew, makes you not even want to look. So gross out terror is the most common thing we're going to see, because that's the easiest thing to do, right? Because when it comes down to it, anime and cartoons is really about the visual, where when it comes to anime, this is debatable, but it's generally thought when it comes to cartoons, just like with video games it's about the gameplay, when it comes to cartoons it's about the visuals. You can have a cartoon or an anime with a pretty bland plot. You can have pretty sucky characters, and you can have pretty bad world building. But if the anime looks beautiful and it looks pretty, it will get a much higher appreciation than with a show with a low animation budget and that's pretty low in all those other spectrums. By just having great animation, it's going to put it a mile above other shows that might not have that high of an animation budget, even if the show, when you really examine it, is kind of bland and not that great. So the visuals are the most important. What are you really going to focus on? You're going to focus on what you can see. You're going to focus on the gross out terror, where you're going to have guts on the floor. You're gonna have characters being ripped apart. You're gonna have them stabbing themselves. You're gonna have them cutting themselves, nails put in their fingers and everything, characters being tortured, because anime is so much about the visual. And to be honest, a lot of these people that are in the anime anyway they're really big artists. They're not really studies of psychology. They probably know a little bit, but they're not big studies on psychology, or they're not really big writers either. So they're not really going to focus on other things other than what you can see. And that's caused in anime for the biggest thing they go to when it comes to horror is to be the lowest tier of terror, unfortunately, which is gross out terror. Shin Sekai Yori, of course, has some gross out terror. We can see that at the beginning when we have characters being ripped apart in elevators and there's blood being splattered everywhere. But even though they have the gross out terror, it really focuses more on jump scare terror, and the last one, which I'm gonna call impending terror, because we gotta have some type of name for it, and I can't think of what Stephen King specifically called it. So we're gonna call it impending terror, where you believe something's about to happen based on some type of stimuli that's giving you a cue, but you get no release because nothing happened. So you're still left with that impending feeling of dread that there still might be something there, when in actuality there might not be anything there at all. The Imperial Cats are mostly going to represent the jump scare terrors to me, because with them, they'll be like stalking a character and everything. You'll see a part of them, and then the character will look behind them. They won't see an Imperial Cat, and then they'll keep walking, and then all of a sudden you'll look behind them, and all of a sudden you see it. And for some reason, I gotta say, jump scare, maybe they just haven't done it right yet, but jump scare terror doesn't seem to work that well in anime. I don't think we really see them experimenting with it too much, because again, people are more focused on the visual, but you don't see it that much in anime. I like to see them experiment with it more, but the few examples I've seen don't really get a fright out of me when it comes to the cartoon medium of horror. And of course, impending terror is also used very well inside of Shin Sekai Yori, especially in episode 19 and 20, where when they're being hunted by the ogre in that masterpiece of an episode, they're constantly like moving through this house trying to escape the ogre, and they find clues that the ogre has been there, but the ogre isn't like there yet. And then later the ogre arrives, but right then and there you have that impending terror where there are clues that there's something bigger going on than these monster rats causing damage to people, but the people inside the anime aren't quite sure, or the people just coming on the scene to what's going on aren't quite sure what that is. So that adds a big degree of impending terror. And then when they refer to when Satoru is asking the people that have already been captured and that they just help rescue from being bait for the ogre, and they're asking him, and he's asking him, what did this to you? And the guy says, there's no time to talk, keep moving. And then he finally says, there's no reason to say what it is, you know what it is, you know what did this to us. And they don't say it at first. That really tingles your spine on that scene. And then of course there's episode 19 when they're in the boat and they think they're fine, and then all of a sudden there's another boat following them, and they believe it's the ogre, but you're not really sure it's the ogre until they give you more clues that it's that, but they just know that there's something following them, and that adds a dimension of fear to that too. So the anime, I think the anime doesn't use impending fear that much, but it still does it more than most anime I've seen, which really helped it gain horror points in my book. Rule number 5 of horror, and the final horror: the monster must be a devil. Rule number 5 and the final rule here of horror is that the monster must be a devil, or kind of like the devil, where the monster must appear unkillable, he must appear invincible, and he must appear unredeemable. I mean, if your protagonist, your heroes can easily tussle with the monster, it will be no different than it being able to tussle with a regular person. You can easily fight it off. Eventually you might have the jock troop that'll be able to go and maybe go toe-to-toe for a little bit, but they're still going to have a bit of a struggle on their hands. And even when the monster seems beat, the monster has to be able to come back. It must have must be kind of like an evil phoenix going on here, which adds to the horror feel of it. If the monster is something that's easily beatable, if it's something that's easily beatable, then it seems like it's something that's comprehensible, and therefore something that's more relatable, which hurts the first rule. Just like in the movie Predator, even though the monster could bleed, the Predator could bleed, the Predator still didn't bleed red blood, the Predator still bled green blood now. So that still adds to that horror that even if it can still bleed, if it bleeds, we can kill it. But the quote Arnold Schwarzenegger. But at the same time though, it still has green blood. It's still something that's beyond comprehension. And how Rule 5 is appreciated here, you're not gonna believe it, is we have the ogre, which seems almost nigh invincible, because now I'm getting into this, because just like with the thing with the bonobo and the sexual attraction caused the 180 from the early hetero to the eventually 180 homosexual spin later on. The humans inside this anime, of course we know for the people that have seen it, they have limiters placed on their genetics that make it so that they cannot kill another human. Or rather, when you really think about it, it's not another human, it's really something they consider the same species, and they get the death of shame. And the death of shame makes it so that they'll die of a heart attack. They'll be like, oh my god, I killed someone, and it'll elevate them to having a heart attack, and they'll kill over and die. But then there's also the aggression limitation too that makes it so that they can't go full out against humans either, which kind of like that really hurts them with the ogre. I guess that goes to show that maybe complete disarmament of all of our weapons, complete pacifism might not be the best way to go, right? Because you completely disarm everybody, then when someone actually comes with a gun, you're not going to be able to do anything. Kind of like that episode of Family Guy when they finally got revolver guns and all those squid stewies murdered everyone in the town. Crazy, right? But in any case, because of those genetic limitations on humans in this time period, when someone with psychic powers comes that's not bound by that, there's nothing that they can do, which makes the monster like appear unkillable. They do figure out a way to get it eventually by, of course, using the death of shame against the ogre. First they find something that can kill the ogre, something that was made to kill psychic, but Sekai unconsciously, because she doesn't want to lose her last friend, Satori was about to sacrifice himself in order to kill the ogre, and she unconsciously destroyed that item. So then they had to sacrifice one of the what's his name, Kamaru, I can't remember what his name is, that tall mole rat guy, in order to kill the ogre, because she actually wasn't an ogre, she actually thought she was a mole rat. So there you go. So, which also leads to the point where, how come the people couldn't just train more? How come humans just couldn't train ogres to think that they were mole rats and just control them, had them kill other humans, keep other humans in control? There are some plot holes here in this, just a few plot holes in this anime, but hey, it's awesome. So, yeah. So with that, the monster has to appear to be unkillable, or at least very hard to kill. Second part of being the devil is that the monster has to appear unredeemable. And a lot of people mess this up when it comes to villains nowadays, where they always want to have the villain to have a backstory and want you to be able to feel for the villain and their circumstances. I would argue that a really good villain, unless you want your villain to be redeemed eventually, a really good villain can also be a monster, and a monster is not supposed to be redeemable. And this really shows with the ogre chick, unfortunately, when they try to show her reflection and let her know that she's still human, she doesn't give a crap. She's still trying to murder them anyway. And this also goes back to Rule 1, where the monster is unrelatable. with that is that if it can be redeemed, then it takes away from the quality of it being something to fear. It becomes something that you can now pet, and you can now give a biscuit or something like that. And you don't want that of a horrifying monster. You want people to be scared of it. You want them trying to destroy it, and you don't want people trying to reason with it. You want monster versus man, like destroyer versus savior. That's what you want, and that creates the ultimate tension. And so that also goes with the trope of the monster must be the devil, and how the monsters in Shin Sekai Yori play into that too. Every monster at the point that it's a monster is unredeemable. As our characters evolve and as they mature, they eventually start learning some of the monsters aren't as monstrous as they thought they were. But during the time period when they're going against these monsters or fighting for their lives against these monsters, the monsters are devils. They are very difficult to kill, and they are unredeemable. And that's rule number 5 when it comes to horror. Well, that concludes our rant for Shin Sekai Yori, aka From the New World. Again, I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a diamond that's hidden at the bottom of the barrel. And hopefully more people will look at this rant, will see my review, and more people come to appreciate Shin Sekai Yori and what it represents. And I do think it's very sad that this anime was looked past, not only because of a lot of other anime that people consider good that was released that season, but also because of people's prejudice, where just like with School Days, there's a lot of people that jumped on the bandwagon with how School Days was such a terrible anime, was bad because of the ending. When you take a look at what the anime does, how it's a deconstruction that shows an aspect of human life that's not explored often inside cartoons and anime, period. And they look past that and they let one thing ruin the whole thing for them. And with School Days, it was what happened near the end. And with this anime, oftentimes there's also people's homophobic tendencies. And you have to be able to look past something, even if there's something you don't like about what you're viewing. You have to be able to look past that in order to see the whole picture. You can't miss the forest for the trees. You have to be able to look and see what the show does. If it has good characterization, has an interesting plot, has good pacing, or just decent pacing for the genre, has world building, or if it at least does most of those, if it at least achieves greatness in most of those qualities, or at least does well in most of them, then you have to at least give it a nod for what it did, as opposed to just berating it for that one or those two things that it doesn't quite do right, or rather those two things that you just didn't like about it. And that's what we're trying to do at Miss Reviews, and why we do our review videos is to show the aspects of a show to let you decide whether you like it or not, as opposed to just jumping on bandwagons to just say something is good and whether something is bad. They'll just present you to present you as much as possible of what we see the anime, what we see you might like about it, and what people generally don't like about it, and then to just let you decide. And Shin Sekai Yori, unfortunately, part of the reason it's not popular is because it fell victim to those prejudices. And hopefully people will be able to look past that, and people will be able to see this anime for the great piece of work that it is. So again, what did you think about From the New World? Did you agree with what I had to say, or did you disagree? What did you honestly think about the anime? If you want to post spoilers, then down here is the place to do it. And let me know whether you liked the anime, whether you disliked it. Please remember to press the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to Miss Reviews to see more of what we have to offer here. And thank you for taking a look at this video today. And if you agree with us, continue to support us. Give us some video suggestions too for some anime, so that we can also maybe find some more gems hidden at the bottom of the barrel and give them more recognition. And thank you for taking the time to look at my video again today. And take care. Bye.